You are a young entrepreneur, single mother.
My great-grandfather was one of the first cancer specialists in the country. This is like a lovely blend of neuroscience and consumer behavior. E-learning is not enough. तो अगर मुझे सब पता है, तो फिर मुझे कोई क्या बता सकता है? Never assume that they would respect you at the first go, or they would listen to you. That it's not a gender challenge; it's gender agnostic. You know, find mentors. Find women, men mentors, whoever you think suit better for your role. There should not be an excuse of victim card, sympathy card that women often play and say, ये ऐसा था इसलिए ऐसा हो गया. AI will replace other skills. AI will not be able to replace this. So you need AI. Finding new tools and building something different is what would help leadership in 10 years down the line. I'm very clear of what I want. I think clarity keeps me, if he grows up to be a decent man to other women, decent man to people otherwise, to value system, to be known, to be remembered. My time, my way.
What are those changes that you see in organizations today as they approach L&D? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of the Sunny Shah Show. Today we have a wonderful guest with us. Dr. Sunanda Banerjee brings with her 17 plus years of corporate experience. She's a leadership coach, a TEDx speaker. She is a coach to CXOs from across the globe. And we are going to talk about her journey. Founder of CoEmerge, Dr. Sunanda, welcome to the show. Sunanda, tell us your journey, how it started, what is CoEmerge, and what do you guys offer as an organization?
Sure. I'll take few steps back when I answer this. I hail from a small town in Rajasthan, and my roots, last 4 generations, have been there. Although you see the name Banerjee, but I'm more of a Rajasthani than a Bengali, although now completely Cosmo. I have lived in Mumbai for 8-9 years, now in NCR for around 8-9 years, couple of years in London. So this leadership development journey, if I come to this, my pedigree has been out and out marketing, business growth roles. That's what my around 14 years of corporate experience has been into. Rest of the last 5 years that I'm into leadership development full-fledgedly at CoEmerge. This has been nothing more than a great coincidence and bunch of coincidences building into each other. I started working with colleges for their placement preparation back in 2012.
Okay.
And in Mumbai. And from there, just some series that, although while in my stint at corporate itself, it just, so happened that I wanted to do something more into it. And 2020 was the time when I said, I was in a job, still had EMI on my head and still with child's fee to take care of everything. But it was just where a couple of opportunities came up. And it was like, I took it like a sign that maybe it's the time. I can't wait to turn 45, 50 and have a safety net to start. I thought this is the time, let's jump into it. And that's when CoEmerge started. I am also certified coach. So I think talking itself has been a challenge for my teachers since when I was in school and college. But I think I realized I can use that to my strength.
Sure.
Being able to read people, being able to support people when they need a soundboard, and then also understanding what journey needs in a corporate, even in life overall, to most importantly become more self-aware.
Right.
That's where it starts. And because that I was able to do over the years, this was a time when I thought, yes, we can, take this up a level above. That's how CoEmerge works. And what we do, we work with primarily mid to senior leadership. We work around their behavioral skills to help them build greater self-awareness to start with. And secondly, what to do about it. Now that I'm aware what to do, how to act, and how to be consistent with it. It's so easy to go on various platforms, listen to motivational speeches and say, oh, wow, I'm just motivated. What about 2 days later? So the retention as well as the action is what gets missing. And that's what these developmental programs help people do. Because we cater directly to the corporates, and that's where we try and understand what do a particular organization need rather than a position that needs. So every company's culture is very different, their needs are different, their stage of growth is different.
Yeah.
And what do then those people specifically, so we would do a lot of deep dive with them to understand the need exactly, and then build and curate the programs accordingly. So that's a bit on the program. Yeah.
You have a background in neuromarketing. How does that help you in this journey being a leadership coach?
Sure. Um, I'll again try and build it. So rather neuromarketing as such, that's my thesis subject for my PhD. And I have worked with this subject now almost 7 years, 6 years of my PhD itself. So now neuroscience is, and I never knew before I started. I'm sure a lot of listeners, a lot of viewers, and you as well, you might not have heard of this term neuromarketing a lot before.
Yeah.
Maybe a bunch of my videos out there. But this is like a lovely blend of neuroscience and consumer behavior, where when you have, let's say when you buy a packet of chips, it's you might not really know why you want this or what prompted you to pick that from the aisle.
Right.
But there is something going behind in your mind and your subconscious mind in a millisecond that made you pick that up. So what is that? Now you don't have an answer, and brands want to know the answer so that they can customize, they can make their offering such that appeals to you more.
Right.
To be able to do that, they have inculcated these neuroscience tools to become more appealing, to become more visible to you as a consumer. Now, when I was studying neuromarketing, I realized that neuroscience itself has a huge scope when it comes to learning.
Okay.
And in smallest of things. So when I ask you a question saying that, how do you think you are at leadership skills? You might say, I'm 10 out of 10. Your team might differ. But it's all subjective opinions. There are now, in very simpler ways and complex ways, we can identify how true that stands. And that's where when I ask you a situation-based question, that's also part of neuroscience, where I'm trying to dig deep through a situation to tell you that, hey, that's where your leadership skills stand. They might not be 100% accurate. Let me also be very upfront about it. But it's still better than being not knowing where it is. So that's where, so when we imbibe even coaching skills, when we talk about leadership development, we try and build our program content and the delivery, keeping in mind the age, the experience, the background. People, let's say, who are in startups would think very differently from established corporates.
Right.
Because they are more hustle mode. They are more, let's get it quick, stealth. Here, people would be, let's work with process. So then even when we deliver, we don't suggest or we won't instruct things that don't suit to that nature. So that's how we inbuild that piece.
I read your profile. I take a lot of inspiration from the fact that you are a young entrepreneur, single mother. What are those key moments in your life, personal or professional, that shaped your current values?
Values is a very strong term. And we do talk about that in programs. And I'd say a lot of them are inherent.
Right.
As family, my parents, they have really, my grandmother, she passed away a decade and a half ago, but they have shaped very strongly foundation of who I am, how I am. And so even things like risk taking. So there's no other entrepreneur in the family in last few generations. My great grandfather was one of the first cancer specialists in the country. My grandfather was engineer at that time. So everybody's service, education and service. That's what father is, a banker. But even being able to take this risk needs a lot of support. I would be doing an injustice to say that I did it all myself. There have been a huge support system in terms of parents who didn't question my methods or, why are you doing? So of course they would be concerned, but they would not stop. A great bunch of support system in terms of friends, even industry, who welcomed somebody who doesn't come with HR background academically, but they trusted me with those programs initially 6 years ago when, and those large clients like Sony Pictures who said, let's take that chance. So, and of course, they found value, and hence we keep doing work with
Yeah.
them every year. But that trust. So each of them, these values, and then being able to, and because you've mentioned motherhood, that's where my universe revolves around. Uh, that so typically people would say it would shake you, your
Okay.
faith, or your risk-taking ability. I think it enhanced. After my son was born, the decisions I have taken in life are much different than what would I have otherwise done. So now to be able to have some, I would want my son to be proud, and there should be a legacy around people, what the work they do.
True.
Sorry, I might be getting distracted for a minute when I say this, digressed a bit, but um, children just don't need, uh, you know, facilities, benefits, their personal room, and lot of family gifts. But what they also need to see role models.
Right.
And we all would, in fact, a lot of us would say our parents as role models. Uh, and that's, of course, we all strive to build that. So legacy becomes, I think, very crucial for somebody like me, where I think money, success, recognition would automatically happen when I'm more striving towards what impact I'm creating. uh, are my programs really delivering some value, or are they just plain words faff?
Mhm.
uh, do people really find meaning in spending time with me?
Mhm.
Do clients find some ROI when they do this business?
Right.
Only when I'm able to answer these questions positively,
Yeah.
I know that we are doing something right. And being able to, because as a single parent, there are a lot of notions, and forget about work. That's just one. I see it as one small aspect, but society,
Mhm.
how people perceive you in our society, um, and when you are an outgoing entrepreneur, solo founder, woman out there, there are a lot of things that, without using it as a sympathy, that I'm telling you, there are a lot of things you are working with. I wouldn't say them challenges, but yes, that's part of the journey. And I'm very proud of that. I'm glad that those challenges happen, and hence that enhance what I bring even to my work, to my child. He sees a stronger woman who's able to manage a life.
Very inspiring. Excellent. Let's move on to the corporate side of yours. You are a leadership coach. You work with various organizations across the globe. L&D is a wide spectrum. What are those key changes that you see in organizations today as they approach L&D?
There is a diaspora that's very wide. Let me begin with that, both on demand and supply side. Uh, Although it's, I would say, more than a decade that I'm involved in this, and last 6 years, much, much deeper, because of course my expertise has honed over the years.
Yep.
My experience has honed over the years. The diaspora on the supply side is that there are a lot of fabulous, individuals, um, or those who are aspiring, let's say, and not yet expert, but who can deliver programs. But being able to measure some quality around it is missing, or being able to value themselves enough is missing. And then the other spectrum, or the top spectrum, is the large sharks of the industry who would say no to customization to clients, or who would say take it or leave it to
Yep.
large brands, and they would charge a bomb and clients would be okay. But the change that's happening is, last 6 years I have also realized, is that clients, the large MNC brands, the ones that work with us, they see this value of not necessarily sticking to large sharks for the name of it, but being able to, that white space that we are able to capture by having uh, customization kind of programs, curation, with the kind of uh, support that they need, that clients need. They don't want touch and go, that you do this, two programs, and there's no support after that.
Right.
How do you measure? How do you see whether people are doing something about it? That's one. Second, organizations are also aware, although there's again a variety of it. Uh, the interested, the sincere organizations who are, you know um, keen for culture building, who are really invested into getting people part right, would realize that, for example, e-learning is not enough. Click next, click next, click next, and you have courses done, nobody knows what's the absorption,
Yeah.
nobody knows what's the retention. So they know that you need a blend of all, a bit of this and a bit of that. Although customary tick mark programs are reducing, that's still a widespread mid-size or smaller organizations or legacy one, some of them that they still do. But organizations are changing that ways. They are valuing to make people stick in the organization, to make people grow, because a new hire is much expensive as compared to upskilling your own team member. And loyalty is also retained accordingly, because people see that company is investing in me. So there is some sort of belongingness, some sort of ownership towards the organization. So there is a multi-fold benefit that such programs can build, not just directly the upskilling part, but how do you nurture the ecosystem overall.
So you believe in more outcome driven and impactful learning
Absolutely.
programs, and that's what you do, right?
Absolutely.
That brings me to an interesting angle of your profession, your background in neuroscience again. And it's interesting the way you explain neuroscience. How do you incorporate that in your learning programs, and how does that impact the overall value of the outcomes of the trainings?
Sure. I would not make any fake claims by saying we are doing a lot in that.
Sure.
We have just begun.
Mhm.
It's baby steps. And also neuroscience as a subject is extremely complex. None of our team, we claim to be an expert. Yet, we are trying to now research more and more of how we can increase that impact.
Sure.
So simple thing, I'll give a simple example if that helps. When we are delivering to a bunch of Gen Z, and we know that a particular kind of slide would appeal to somebody who's a senior 20 years experienced person, because there would be some interesting data facts, some interesting pointers, that numbers that would
Yeah.
make them feel that, oh, this is interesting. A Gen Z, they might be very smart, they are smart, they would have pedigree, but then their ways of retention, their ways of understanding concepts are very different.
Right.
So I can't show the same data heavy slide. Should not either. So I would have visuals that appeal, AI generated visuals, for example. Or just yesterday I was at one of this new age B schools, and you could sense people's reaction when they saw an AI generated, where I was showing comparison between $10.99 plus $2 shipping versus $12.99 total cost plus free shipping. So what would you pick?
Yeah.
Although it's the same thing. So that intrigued them, that piqued their interest. So these are small nuances where I know that what audience, what age bracket, and what kind of, even let's say, sales teams, they learn very differently from legal and commercial, because legal commercial would have an evaluative ways of looking. Sales team would have more of what next, okay, how do I get this, how do I bring the outcome, I need the numbers, like that. So, and then how do I get the client, more of people interaction. So even the visual of my text, the activities, the simulation that we'll do in the sessions would be very different. This is how we are trying to work on the psyche of these so-called consumers, and then build the programs which are more effective or more appealing to them.
So it seems like everything that you do for your specific clients is highly curated.
Right.
Is that a right
Right.
assumption?
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. And hence, we would not have anything that if, a client says, I want something tomorrow, we would never be able to give that. There wouldn't be anything templatized, ready to eat.
It's interesting. You would be, as a young leadership coach, you would have encountered working with a lot of senior executives, senior leaders. What challenges do you face while you are coaching them, and how do you overcome them?
The first challenge is, I know it all. That's where it starts with. तो अगर मुझे सब पता है, तो फिर मुझे कोई क्या बता सकता है? You know, that piece. So, and that's, in fact, I would say not senior, anybody. I have encountered freshers, and even this incident that I'm talking about, the new age B school, you get sense, because you're working with people day in, day out, you start knowing some bit of it. If not, I'm not saying mind reader, but you get to know the vibe, you get to know what people are thinking, or how they're perceiving your presence in the room. So you can sense the smirk, or, oh, I know this would be there, or somebody who's coming in a sari versus somebody who's coming in.
Yeah.
So people have those perceptions. I take it as a wonderful challenge because I love that. That's a sense of achievement for me. When in half an hour, suddenly you see things have changed. People are more open now. They will sit first like this or like this. Suddenly they'll be more leaning on the table. So that shift happens.
Right.
And so this challenge of one, the omniscience challenge, but that eventually goes down because they start seeing value or they start seeing relatability. Most of the time, um, that's one thing that I tell to my fellow facilitators or the ones whom we are training as facilitators is that never assume that they would respect you at the first go or they would listen to you. No matter what level, what generation you are catering to, what global organization versus domestic, um, and don't take it as an offense on you as an individual. I have made that mistake at the beginning. I used to, that ego hurt. How can they think they know more? That's both ways. But over the years, I've realized use it as in your benefit. Show that I might not know everything,
Right.
but build that by being relatable to them, by making them know that I have been there or I have seen how it is, so I understand your challenge.
Yeah.
And that suddenly opens them up, and that's from that's where we and coaching itself, it's such a wonderful process, exhausting but wonderful, because you have to be kind of soundboard without judging. You have to without suggesting, without any opinions on your end, but build up with them as a partner in thoughts, a partner in vision, in action. So once they start seeing your authentic self of that, again, and they would also acknowledge, I might not know more than you, but they would acknowledge that he or she's on my side. And that's where it starts becoming easier.
I'm going to touch base on a very important aspect of yours. I know it's very close to your heart. We're looking at women empowerment. You led initiatives like Nari Shakti. How are you getting involved in this whole ecosystem? And what do you think of women as emerging leaders in corporate India?
That's more than, that being a woman, but I also see for men now that evolving space is happening for men as well, where they are truly becoming allies to the and not block to the system. And interestingly, that goes both ways. We often don't address enough that it's not a gender challenge, it's gender agnostic.
Right.
Women being stopped or younger people being stopped, or even ageism as a challenge where people 50 plus being stopped from growing is gender agnostic or individual agnostic. You would hear a lot of times where women have not been supportive of other women, and hence the growth stopped, or because somebody, I give this example very often in sessions, and I would like to repeat this. There's a mother-in-law story, we call this.
Mm-hmm.
So in India especially, we know that we have a stereotype of mother-in-law, and so there are two types of that. First is who would say, because I have seen so much of pain, torture, challenge by my mother-in-law, you also need to go through the same phase to become tough. The tough love, so-called tough love. And hence, I'll also take you through the entire this. The other one is, because I have been through so much, I'll make sure that you don't go through this. And I cut the loop. I break the chain. My grandmother was the second one. And I take immense pride. I think whatever I've learned about women empowerment, I've learned from that woman the most. She was an iron lady, absolutely. And I have seen the struggles. I have heard also much more about her struggles, and I have never seen her cribbing. I have never seen her. I had never seen her. I still feel she's there, so I use the term present. Sorry about that. So that's what real women empowerment is very difficult to limit to AC rooms and champagne glasses in conferences. Uh, the empowerment becomes restricted when we just limit the conversations. how many of us are able to go out and support when a woman says, my child was being cranky today, and she says it 3-4 times, and then the boss kind of gives up and says, boss, can't take the same excuse every day.
Yeah.
Although can't, but provisions of being able to, what is the solution? Simply, as simple as that. If support system doesn't exist at home, it's very easy again to talk about on Women's Day and Mother's Day, we should do this and we should do that. Ground level reality is very, very different. So how do we build on to that? That's where I want to come to the empowerment piece. And now, so that's the bigger challenge, which I don't think we are equipped right now, or I'm equipped at all. It would be just fancy to say it here that we should do this, that, but that's not as of now to be able to. But now people who have the privilege, or privilege as in terms of, let's say, decent support system, but want, or just are not, or women who feel that abhi ho gaya, that's where I'm fine, now I have the child. That's an ambition challenge. But if you have ambition but are not able to, a lot of self-limiting beliefs and internal narratives hold us back. And again, I use this very frequently. There are studies where you would hear men would apply for jobs even if they are 40% matching to the job title, the job role. Women would not unless they're 90% sure.
More precise.
They because no, it's more of imposter syndrome. I'm not enough.
Okay.
I might not be fit. I would not try. I would not ask. So imagine where if you don't ask for help, how do you expect people to help you?
So do you think it's the risk-taking appetite?
Risk-taking appetite. More than risk is again secondary, I don't feel enough. Okay. It's imposter syndrome, and I feel it day in, day out. Even before coming, I feel, and it's embarrassing, but I want to accept so that others can accept as well. I would feel, if I'm going on a stage, somebody would tap from behind and say that, you're in the wrong place. You should be sitting there. You're not supposed to be on the stage. So those challenges would keep, and that still would happen every time TEDx or panel discussions are here, that, feeling of, am I really at the right place? Do I deserve this? Is it my sheer luck? Would keep happening. The idea is to be aware and say that I have earned this place. I have given my blood, sweat and tears to co-emerge over the years, while ensuring that I give all the time remaining to the child. I have not, and one reason is where I felt I can't be restricted to the 9 to 6, because I know I can do that work in 5 hours. To sit there and have coffee and chai break and gossip with team members is not my thing. I want to give those 3 hours to my boy. So being one, as you said, risk appetite for sure.
Yeah.
And that belief that now whatever I have done is because of me, not done also because of me. So let's start. Where do I start? That first step. And then asking for help. You might not get in 5 places out of 10, but rest 5 will in some shape or form. So that ask people, find mentors. Find women, men mentors, whoever you think suit better for your role. There should not be an excuse of victim card, sympathy card that women often play and say, ye aisa tha, isliye aisa ho gaya. I have to do this. If there is and sorry, I would also take a moment to mention this. I reckon with leaders who say work-life balance is a myth, because it is a myth. I'm day and night choosing between work and my other priorities. But depending on, I wouldn't feel guilt. I would still feel guilt of maybe for the child part. But rest of the life, then I'm making those choices.
Right.
I can't blame. I don't have work-life balance. I have made that choice of not having a cushion of salary every month. Having to worry every month, how would this month go? How would this year go? Going to investors and not being sure of the projections. But I'm making that choice and I have to own it up. The day I start owning, I know that now whatever happens, I'm doing my best. Now whatever happens, let it be, we leave it to the fate.
So Dr. Sunanda, let's talk about innovation in your industry. AI coming into the play. How will this transform the way the programs are executed and L&D industry as a whole? What's your perspective on that?
I'll be very honest without jumping in the party without being very sure of that. Now, it's still, I think, at very, very nascent stage to reach, although there are a lot of experts now around AI in learning and
Right.
marketing in learning, uh, as far as the markets that are flourishing in learning are still limited to delivery pieces, a bit of research imbibed, but yet AI to be able to full-fledgedly make an impact,
Right.
that will take time.
Mhm.
Also, because you can have AI generated content. Let's talk business. AI generated content is one thing that can be done by anybody. But what would make a difference? Giving the right cues or giving the right, how do you generate right answers, and because you're asking the right questions. That's one. That's again a very unique skill, and that happens over a period of time. But as far as learning to corporates, people in leadership, mid-level management, the best thing that AI can help as of now is a self-paced learning that can be more customized individually. So prompts that can help individuals to understand where they are
Right.
and what they need. That is one.
Mhm.
Another is where gamification, honestly. So more hyper real gamification simulation spaces that can help, and especially for Gen Alpha, Gen Z, because there they would be able to relate more and build more engagement with them. As far as results are concerned, of course, to be able to have more curated and more precise results, more quantified results in learning is what AI can help with. And each one of them, as you can, I'm sure if you connect the dots, are very connected
Right.
to be able to have. But I still feel markets will take a load of time to have more. You can still continue doing trial and error. That can happen, and we are still doing that. Already we are doing that in content piece, in visual piece, that we are. But to be able to have concrete results, I think that's still a while later. Although I'm absolutely a non-proponent of saying AI will replace jobs and that's not going to happen, because that might still do, but where it's as simple as where we had hand pulled rickshaws and autos replaced, but then the rickshawalas had to upskill themselves to be able to drive an auto. It's just as that. So you would only be replaced when you're not ready enough, when you are not prepared enough. That's all when it will happen. But otherwise, I think it's still in the right direction.
So I think it'll supplement and complement your aspects of making L&D a more better
Absolutely.
function.
Absolutely.
Is that a fair way of putting it?
Absolutely, it is, because you can always find. I have a notion here. You would only get threatened when you're not prepared,
Right.
or you have contained yourself too small. When you are, even no matter what age and stage of your career, if you're not reading industry trends, if you're not talking to industry peers, if you're not aware of benchmark practices, you would be then it's for you. You
Yeah.
would be replaced because you're not ready, right? So to be able to see them as complementary tools rather than threats,
Yeah.
rather than weapons against you or attacking you, you would find ways to work around things, and like a, let's say, a right hustler, or right, a good entrepreneur, where you would find ways of working rather than saying. So I have lot of CHROs, HR heads who are now in their, let's say, 50s or something, and they'll come and say, I want to start something, I want to join this. What about you? Can or a couple of them got laid off a while ago, and they said, I want to join, tell me more about this. But in a few months, I said, you will want to talk? No, I'm looking for something new. Salary once gone, how would we manage without? So the salary cushion. And then you feel threatened if new age entrepreneurs are taking up that space, or rather than threatened, you just feel that, oh, I wish I could have, because you didn't.
Yeah.
So I think this is all, eventually it all builds up if you keep an open mind and look at opportunities rather than obstacles.
If you were to build leadership development programs, especially in your space, your forte, for the next 10 years, what would the core pillars of these programs be?
I would not focus on, so let's take a step back. In 10 years time, today 10 years, 15 years, so our children would be working in that time, right?
Mhm.
They would already have maybe a couple of years experience around that. And by the time, and we would always have sci-fi saying that, you know, flying cars, this, that, but things would not change at that speed. If
True.
you have read 0 to 1, that talks about the bunch of major innovation has already happened. Now it's just modifications happening a bit here and there,
Yeah.
right? Because the effects happen rolling over a period of time that show up later. Now, having said that, so leadership or people development has to come back to people skills,
Mhm.
what human needs. On my LinkedIn profile, you'll see as a first line, what people need is not just about promotion, awards, higher salaries, packages. These are outcomes.
Right.
What they need is validation for what they do and recognition for what they are as people. I have seen organizations, people, and I'm sure you have seen, we all have, where people would stick at a bit lower paying jobs or missing a promotion because they find more, you know, I'm valued here. My work is important here. Rather than being part of a thousand crowd. But that's an individual value.
True.
That I want recognition. I want my work to be impactful. If you're okay with that, I let me do my job, get my salary, go home, eat, sleep, watch TV, and that's if that's the life, that's what majority is doing already.
True.
But people who have even an iota of feel of I want to do something meaningful. I want to sleep saying kuch kiya. I did something. And not major, any small stuff. Or boss came and said, and you have that, you know, want to come back home and tell your spouse or your mother
Yeah.
saying that, you know, today boss said this. You know, I everybody, you know, clapped for my presentation because you want that. You don't want somebody saying that, okay, whatever job you did, take this 100 rupees. It won't be the same. So for this validation recognition, what you need is understanding of people, empathy, emotional intelligence, non-negotiable. Because AI will replace other skills. AI will not be able to replace this. So you need AI, you need empathy, you need sense of belongingness, you need ownership and accountability. So these are and then resilience, adaptability. These are the things that will determine your making a difference versus technical skills, and anybody can learn and AI can do that now. Suddenly now every content person is getting worried
Yep.
that AI is replacing. So what else? What different? So that constantly building onto something new, finding new tools and building something different is what would help leadership in 10 years down the line.
That's good. You wear multiple hats, right? You are an entrepreneur, a TEDx speaker, an executive coach, a mother. How do you bring harmony in all of these roles?
Harmony, yes, thanks you use the word harmony. Had you said balance, I would have again said, oh no, there's no balance. I have made peace with the fact that I would not get it all. And now I don't want it all. I'm very clear of what I want. I think clarity keeps me, my sanity. So if I keep figuring that, oh, I don't have, you know, having a family at home. Uh, so that's it. If happens when happens, that's very different. But peace with my work at whatever pace it is. So when even everybody raises funds around me, I have some extremely successful founders as my friends. I'm very fortunate. My batchmates, some of them, they are doing like just day before a friend has raised $60 million, and that's not even uh, the entire valuation. So I have made peace that I don't want things at the cost of things that are more important to me. Time, my way, my energy, my way. I would not have I have said no to clients who didn't treat me as a vendor with respect enough, or who would like I cannot be treated like pan ki dukaan person. So we are doing fairly well. And with the kind of brands that we work with, the kind of names now that we have year on year, not just one-time projects, that speaks something about of what we are doing right. So that becomes very essential.
Yeah.
And secondly, so one, making peace of, even if I don't have large investment behind me to put in 5 different newspapers, I know, but the actual reality of those founders,
True.
the lives they live, because the money doesn't go to the founder.
True.
People don't know that. Because, so my mother yesterday called me and she said, you know, there's this, I read in paper, there's a conclave happening here and there are 100 investors coming, they're inviting 50 women entrepreneurs. Why don't you go and ask for investment? She called, everybody's invested in my journey. So now with all of that, so I told her that once I go blindly for investment, the company wouldn't be mine anymore. More than that, my people who are working with me, the autonomy of choosing projects, choosing right projects, meaningful work would be gone. So I would rather grow 5x rather than 10x, but grow sustainably. That's one. Secondly, choice of having uh, my weekends, my evenings, depending with, because I know my child is few years still close. After, you know, college and all that, you don't know them anymore. But I want to have those initial years as strong foundation for values.
Sure.
I have never told that you should become this or that. If he grows up to be a decent man to other women, decent man to people otherwise, to value system, to be known, to be remembered rather than known when you are there. That's how I see for myself. I would like to be remembered rather than known for today of things that you keep doing, because that's frivolous. That's there today and not tomorrow. But how have you really made people feel? What impact you have left on them, and what do they talk about you behind your back in the room, is what defines.
Really, I think the last hour and so has been a beautiful journey trying to learn more about you. Uh, I wish co-emerge your startup and you obviously all the very best
Thank
for
you.
all the great things that future has in
Thank
store
you.
for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, Sunny. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for such wonderful questions that helped me, answer in this way. So all kudos to the team. Thank
The
you.
pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Sunanda Banerjee. What an incredible role model in our society. A single mother building a startup, being a top executive coach to so many people across the globe, and a future of hope for L&D industry. Hey, if you're not subscribed to our channel yet, please press the bell icon before you leave so that we can bring more such meaningful conversations at your doorstep. Thank you so much. This is me signing off. Thanks a lot.